Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It is 6:07. It's O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in on this bright and cheery Thursday morning in your nation's capital. Coming up in 30 minutes, this man is very happy. His name is Marc Morano of Climate Depot. And he just heard some announcements from EPA Chief Lee Zeldin that is an absolute earthquake in the world of regulation, climate BS, and energy production. We'll get to it coming up in just a moment. Also at 7:05, Michael Glassner, former COO of the Trump campaign in 2020, talk about the DOGE, talk about tariffs, talk about Ukraine. At 7:35, Secretary Doug Collins of Veterans Affairs, who was fantastic yesterday going after a reporter for writing about rumors instead of fact. And then at 8:05, Steve Moore. Rumor has it Mercedes Schlapp is with us this morning as well. Oh, it's true. There she is. Hello, Mercedes. Good to see you.
How are you, darling?
I'm good. I'm living La Vida Loca. And
I know,
very
I
much
feel that way.
I'm excited about this Trump cabinet, I have to say. He's got such a team around him, including Lee Zeldin at EPA. Can you even name Biden's EPA administrator? Exactly.
I can't remember who it is.
Couldn't tell you.
But that they like are the most ineffective cabinet I had ever seen under Biden. Like, you never heard about any of them. And then you never heard of any scandal coming out of any of them, which was, this is what they did to the Trump first cabinet. This cabinet is very focused, very strong. I'm very impressed, to say the least.
Zeldin absolutely dropped a deregulatory hammer yesterday, like Thor, that reverberated from D.C. to the heartland. We're talking about 31 actions. Yeah, think about that. He's been in office for like 5 weeks, maybe, as administrator of the EPA. And he said, all right, let's do something big in March. 31 actions.
Yeah, he's so impressive.
Roll back this tangle of environmental regulations that have choked American ingenuity. Because, you ask anybody who tries to develop or do anything in this country, environmental regulations, they can find a code to mess with you in one direction or the other. It's written in such a way that they can just use it as a weapon against you no matter what you try to do. This is your land is too wet, you have to do this. Oh, your land is too dry, you have to do this. It's like, doesn't matter. It's all set up that way.
The infringement on ranchers and farmers from the EPA is like something I've never seen. And all in the name of their religion, climate change. And This is where Lee Zeldin has been so effective. And let me tell you, there are so many scandals coming out of the Biden EPA. In the last few months of the Biden EPA, we have seen billions of dollars that were being sent over to these climate united funds, like all these leftist groups, Larry. It is scary stuff that is being unraveled because Lee Zeldin is doing such incredible work. But you're absolutely right. You've seen even the fact that Pete Hegseth at the Department of Defense literally scrapped all the climate change jargon and those grants because why? For the Democrats, climate change was a national security problem. For Pete Hegseth, it's like, this is crap. We're not doing this. We're cutting it out of our budget. And I think that's a brilliant move coming from the administration.
What we learned was, for Democrats, it was an industry slush fund where they could throw tens of billions of dollars into, these NGOs that had just been created. And they brought banks in to sort of be the administrators of government funds. Citibank is now getting caught up in this, and the Trump administration is looking to see if any criminal activity was involved in basically moving federal money into a private bank account and then allowing these banks, along with these NGOs, to distribute federal money to basically keep Democrats employed for the next 4 years until the next Democrat comes into office. Lee Zeldin called it out in a social media video yesterday. Here, take a listen to this.
Today, I'm pleased to make the largest deregulatory announcement in U.S. history. The Environmental Protection Agency is initiating 31 historic actions to fulfill President Trump's promise to unleash American energy, revitalize our auto industry, restore the rule of law, and give power back to the states. EPA will be reconsidering many suffocating rules that restrict nearly every sector of our economy and cost Americans trillions of dollars. Our actions include the Biden administration's deeply flawed Clean Power Plan 2.0, mercury and air toxic standards, Quad O BC, particulate matter 2.5, light, medium, and heavy car and truck rules, NESHAPs, and the so-called social cost of carbon. To advance cooperative federalism, EPA will partner with states that were universally rejected by the last administration's Good Neighbor rule. Among many other actions, today's momentous day also includes the 2009 endangerment finding, along with all actions that rely on it. I've been told the endangerment finding is considered the holy grail of the climate change religion. For me, the U.S. Constitution and the laws of this nation will be strictly interpreted and followed. No exceptions. Today, the Green New Scam ends as the EPA does its part to usher in the golden age of American success. Our actions will lower the cost of living by making it more affordable to purchase a car, heat your home, and operate a business. Jobs will be created, especially in the U.S. auto industry, and our nation will become stronger for it. From the campaign trail to day one and beyond, President Trump has delivered on his promise to unleash energy dominance and lower the cost of living. We at EPA will do our part to power the great American comeback.
Wow, it's almost like Marc Morano, our guest coming up at 6:35, wrote half of that speech. Especially, I love the term "green new scam." It's just
love
he
it.
Says it like it
He's
is.
so good.
And
He's just so good.
It's a beautiful thing to behold. So, and of course, the left is screaming that it's deregulation and it's going to kill our planet. And the last time Trump did something similar to this, although it wasn't quite as sweeping, we actually reduced. If you're worried about greenhouse gases, you should embrace this because we actually reduced our greenhouse gases in the first Trump administration.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, there is a way that you work with businesses to say, listen, we want you to be environmental stewards. We want you to work to be responsible in reducing emissions. But it was the overbearing regulations of the left. It was, as Lee Zeldin said, the scam, the Green New Deal scam that these Democrats have pushed time and time again to what? To profit, to make money off the Green Deal. This is what it is. And it wasn't about let's try to support the farmers, the ranchers, the small businesses to succeed, the corporations even to succeed because of these ridiculous regulations. And obviously they wanted to strangle the oil and natural gas industry. That was part of this whole scam. So President Trump yesterday, I just want to add this, said during the White House St. Patrick's Day event, he basically looked at Lee Zeldin and said, we're going to get our nuclear power plants, right? So that's kind of the next big move of what they're thinking in terms of expanding the energy proposals and what they're doing. I think he's mentioned that to him as well as the Department of Energy Secretary, Chris Wright.
Yeah, if you worry about carbon emissions, then you should embrace nuclear power. All right, coming up, we're going to talk to Marc Morano at 6:35, and we'll ask him also about these green slush funds that Zeldin spoke about on Fox yesterday. We'll bring you some of that audio, too. First, though, at 6:15, WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on the fives. Jamie Whitten is in the Hadid carpet cleaning.
WMAL, making sense of the news.
Having Rosie O'Donnell back in the news because she has left America and moved to Ireland because of Trump. It brings to mind the idea that for a while there, Rosie O'Donnell was the darling of the political left in this country. She was the voice of Democrats, especially female Democrats, because she was on The View and tangled often with Elizabeth Hasselbeck, as you remember. Here's how bad she was on The View. The producers decided after she was gone that they had to get back to sane, rational conversation, so they hired Whoopi Goldberg. That's how nuts.
That's how bad it is.
Rosie O'Donnell was.
Whoopi's gone crazy.
Yeah, they go through cast changes there all the time. It seems like Joy Behar is the only one that's still left from the original cast. They're always trying to find a different woman of the right, although it's never really, really, really a conservative woman. Elizabeth Hasselbeck was probably the last one. Have they ever had you on that panel, Mercedes? I would think that.
No, Matt's been on The View twice.
Yes,
they've tried to get me on, and I I haven't done it, so I don't know. I don't think they want me. I'm like too. I think I'd get into. I'd have to figure out how I would even manage it because you don't want to get so angry, but they're so stupid, and you just don't want. You got to balance out. You got to play psychology with them.
It is a very real
they're
challenge.
So messed up.
As I've mentioned on the air, I'm friends with Meghan McCain, and I know that she was a really, really
she was
hard lift for her.
She was traumatized by it. She talks
but she
about
was
it all the
tremendous at it. But it took a toll on her psyche.
Yeah.
Well, apparently back in the mid 2000s during the Bush administration, they were looking to fill the slot that eventually Elizabeth Hasselbeck had. And Kennedy, the former MTV and radio host and then eventually Fox Business personality, Kennedy, was apparently auditioning for that. And she had quite a few appearances. And on Gutfeld the other night, she revealed what it was like. Take a listen.
I auditioned for The View in 2003. And went pretty far through the process and got along great because Starr was there. Barbara Walters is still alive. God rest her soul. She was lovely. Meredith Vieira was still there. We talked about conservative politics. Joy was a talking hemorrhoid in an auburn wig. She was so ungracious and awful, and she had a comedy writer writing her little lines during the breaks, and I was like, she's not even funny. She's not reacting to anything. She's not thinking in the moment. And then I made some jokes because it's a conversational show before it became an unwatchable abortion, because usually they're so much fun to watch.
Yes, they really are.
And she said to me during the break, I'll handle the comedy here.
No
And
way.
I said, great, whenever you start, like, I'll ease up on the joke.
Oh, man, I got to tell you,
So-
I'm sorry she didn't get the gig. That would have been a good little back and forth between Kennedy and
Yeah,
Joy.
I was on the Joe Behar show. I think when she had it, like, I can't remember what channel she was on.
Oh, she had like a primetime show on
she
Headline
did.
News. It was Headline News.
She did. So I went up to New York. I think Matt went up to New York too. We did the show. And I got to tell you, she was fine. Like, we got along fine. She was funny. We don't agree on politics. I think they've become more obnoxious with The View. I think they've become very arrogant. I think it's not healthy TV because I think that their views are so out of touch with where the vast majority of American women are. And I think they try to espouse like the liberal, just leftist religion, which is just toxic. And I think it's very anti-women, quite frankly, and it's not healthy. And I think their conversations have created, I think, a very toxic environment for the most part on that show. So, look, and Alyssa Farah, someone who I worked with at the White House, someone who I would say I kind of mentored for a little bit, like, she just betrayed everybody. Like, and it's disgusting to watch. It's disgusting to watch.
You chase those paychecks. It's amazing what happens. I'll tell you this, and I'll leave it at this. I say this all the time. They never take my advice, so I don't mind giving it to them again. This goes for all the networks. It goes for all the cable stations, and including Fox, including Newsmax, frankly. They would be so wise to have a show like this originate in the Midwest or in the South. Technologically, it's easy enough to do. These companies are based in D.C. and in New York, and because of that, their staff, their writers, their producers, even if you're a right-of-center cable network, you still are influenced by the culture and the politics and the everyday conversations of Manhattan and Washington, D.C. And ultimately, it's just not going to relate and be understandable and be consumed at the level that you would think it could, the way a Midwestern-based show would be, and really reflect what Americans think. It's 6:22.
Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
6:37, good morning. Thanks for tuning into O'Connor and Company. We're going to get your day started the right way, and hopefully with a smile on your face as well. A lot to smile about these days. At 7:05, Michael Glasner, former CEO of the Trump 2020 campaign, talk about DOGE and tariffs. 7:35, Secretary Doug Collins of Veterans Affairs, because, well, we care about veterans, and so does Secretary Collins. He's having a great run already. 8:05, Steve Moore, Heritage Foundation, talk about these tariffs and what might be on the upside here with our economy. It's Larry O'Connor with Mercedes Schlapp. Good morning, Mercedes.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm feeling great because we have an EPA administrator who understands that red tape is stifling American intervention. Here he was yesterday.
Today, the Green New scam ends.
And I heard that and thought, okay, so Marc Morano wrote this speech? Marc Morano, ClimateDepot.com, joins us now. He's also the author of the Politically Incorrect Guide to Climate Change. Mark, you must be walking on sunshine today because you're seeing an EPA that's actually using common sense when it comes to these unbelievable burdens we've been under.
I mean, I am actually, you're spot on. I am stunned. I was a volunteer in 1980, Ronald Reagan's campaign. I lived through the 80s. I worked on Capitol Hill in the 90s. I worked in the U.S. Senate during the Bush and Obama years. I just have to say that I've never seen an entire movement of climate change, decades in the making. I mean, this has been going in earnest since the late 80s, really picked up steam and with Al Gore. A movement collapsed before our eyes to where now the EPA director is calling it a scam. And it's funny you say that about, I didn't write the speech, but when he said it's been called the holy grail of climate science, talking about finding CO2 as a pollutant. That was my quote the day they were hinting at this in Bloomberg News. So I'm assuming Zeldin was quoting me there. But what's interesting is he's absolutely right. What he did yesterday with these 31 actions, not only was it common sense, but for the first time now, with a level of permanence, we are leaving. The environmental movement is no longer going to be hijacked by global warming, and we're actually going to deal with real environmental problems. We're going to have a real focus and get away from this hysteria about climate change.
We've also seen Lee Zeldin deal with these NGOs, and something that I think has been completely a huge scandal, I think, coming out of the Biden administration. Could we go to cut 7?
It's a green slush fund, $20 billion parked at an outside bank towards the end of the Biden administration, given to just 8 NGOs. You just named a bunch of them. These NGOs were created for the first time, many of them just to get this money. And they're pass-throughs. So the EPA entered into this account control agreement with these entities. Treasury enters into a financial agent agreement with the bank, and they design it to tie the EPA's hands behind their back, to tie the federal government's hands behind its back. So when the money goes through the NGOs to subgrantees, many of them also pass-throughs, we don't know where it's going. We don't have the proper amount of oversight. And as you pointed out, it's going to people who are in the Obama and Biden administrations. It's going to donors. It's not going directly, as you pointed out, thankfully you did, it's not going directly to remediate that environmental issue to deliver clean air, land, and water. It's billions, tens of billions of dollars going through their friends.
So I got to ask you, Mark, I mean, this is huge. I mean, this idea that especially at the tail end, they're going to these money was being sent over to the Climate United Fund. Do we know anything about these groups?
No, the same thing happened in 2009, Obama's green stimulus, but that was only $80 billion. We're talking the Inflation Reduction Act is in the trillions. Remember when $80 billion was a lot of money? That was only 2009. What they've done here, Mercedes, is these are groups that didn't even have websites a few months before getting hundreds of millions and billions of dollars in some cases. It's insane. Some of them had to take EPA, federal government budget courses on how to submit their budget proposals. They knew nothing about it. All they knew is they had people like John Podesta, Stacey Abrams. They were well connected. Same thing happened with Obama's stimulus. It went to Democratic donors. This is the greatest scam. We have none other than former West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin to thank for this, for getting this bill foisted on us. But this really occurred, a lot of this occurred right after Donald Trump won and before he was sworn in. They just pumped the money out. That's why they use the analogy of throwing gold bars off the Titanic. And they use Citibank to try to tie the money up so they can't. Once Citibank had it, there's some provision where they can't rescind the money. And so that's what they're fighting over now.
And that may be illegal, and the Justice Department is looking at it as well. Marc Morano, of the thing, where you're seeing headlines from the left, of course, screaming that, Lee Zeldin and Donald Trump are killing the planet, and they're pointing to toxic air standards that have changed, mercury standards that are changed. Can you sort of summarize what exactly Zeldin announced yesterday, and how it may or may not affect the environment, and how it may or may not affect cutting through red tape so that we can actually unleash our economy again?
Well, okay, here's the bottom line. People think if you put the most extreme restrictions on industry or our economy on the name of the environment, and then you ever try to edge back, people think, oh my God, you don't care about the environment. If you listen to even mainstream media reporters who cover this beat, since 1970, the U.S. has radically cleaned up our air and water quality, and particularly the air quality. And we've done it with economic growth, technology, and massive increase in population. The World Health says we're among the cleanest air in the world. So what the Biden administration and what the Obama administration have done is they put the most onerous standards on. Parts per million, parts per billion. You can't even measure the effect on human health. So any retrenchment of that or taking that back is seen as horror. So what he's done, Lee Zeldin yesterday, 31 different actions. This includes, as you mentioned, air pollution, water, other things. He's making it more of a common sense level, and there's also recognizing that there's state environmental agencies, there's local environmental agencies, that they can then bring this back to a local level. You can imagine the environmental activists are going to scream that America is being poisoned now, but This was long overdue.
If they're unhappy, it means it's probably a good move, and it makes Marc Morano of ClimateDepot.com happy. Marc, always good to talk with you, and let's let the good times roll. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Lee.
44.
Chris Plant, weekdays 9 to noon on 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news.
Well, it's coming up on prom season, Mercedes Schlapp. It freaks me out to think that I've known your little girls, your daughters, your 5 daughters, for like 12 years now. And
That's
I know
crazy.
you've been through the whole prom thing, and now your littlest ones are teenagers. Well, let's see, your youngest is now 12. Your youngest is 12?
13. Lucia's 13
so they're
already.
teenagers. Oh, my God.
Crazy.
So I don't know if you've had to deal with the drama over daughters and prom dresses and all of that, but no matter how bad it was not as bad as this story coming out of the Atlanta area. Listen to this.
Watch this. Bargain hunting gone bad. That's the young woman selling the prom dress, tossing another young woman to the ground after several earlier struggles.
I would say it's not something we normally have to investigate. It's, an argument over a prom dress.
Now, this whole thing started going haywire when the buyer of the dress wanted to try it on right here at the gas station. So she and the seller walked inside the gas station to go inside the bathroom to try it on. But she was met by another young woman who grabbed the dress and started running.
Right here by the gas pumps.
Some kind of argument or discussion over the money involved or the payment ensued.
Here you see there's a group now, including the seller's boyfriend. He managed to get the dress back, but the gas station surveillance camera shows how this whole thing flared up, leading to the body slam.
You can see the victim there being choked from behind, the other individual had her arms around her somewhere, and I guess tight enough that she was able to still get out of it by flipping her over.
In the end, Morgan Flincham, the buyer, is charged with battery and theft by taking. Layla DeJager is charged with battery and theft by taking, and Kelly George is charged with theft by taking. All caught on video. One reason why police recommend person-to-person sales be done in public.
Yeah, that's the takeaway. So
What's
the one
wrong
woman
with
was
these teenagers? Come on, people. Seriously,
Hey.
it's just a prom dress.
You want that prom dress, and you're beefing over how much it's going to cost. So they were doing almost like a Facebook Marketplace kind of thing, where it's like, hey, you want to buy my prom dress? Okay, here you go. Meet me at the gas station.
Meet
Come
me
on
at the
in.
gas station, because that's where you buy prom dresses. So I did go prom dress shopping with Alyssa on Sunday, and it was so fun because the sisters went, Kat and Viana, and it's just such a sweet moment because it's her senior prom, and but this is insane. I don't want
approve of
Alyssa
the
hanging
date?
out with we'll get to meet him. Yes, so we'll meet him ahead of time. So we'll see, but
You're
we're a lot like the
stammering.
Schlapp. Let me tell you, dating in the Schlapp, like for these girls to bring home the boyfriends, it's
Yes.
a lot. It's stressful because
Oh,
they're
I bet.
dealing with, Viana's boyfriend worked at CPAC, like he volunteered.
I know. He was in charge of you.
Yes, he was in charge of me. And Turner Johnson, who pretty much runs CPAC with Macy, said it's his make it or break it moment. Meaning,
Yeah, it was.
like if he can't handle CPAC, he can't
He did
handle the
great.
Schlapps. And
All
it's
right,
not going to
so
work. But he did a great job.
Your third prom is taken care of now, prom dress, and you got 2 more to go. There were no fights at any gas stations, no body
No
slams,
fights.
no arrests.
We found the dress. We're moving on.
And can I just tell you, it's a very short skip and a jump from buying the prom dress to her saying yes to the wedding dress.
Well, can I just say something?
Fast.
We were talking about the 2028 presidential race, and I was thinking, oh my, Larry, you could be a grandfather by then.
It's 6:52.
J.D. Vance, president.